Alright, so I'm going to try to do a proper tutorial of Stagelight. The first one I did didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it to, just because I was using my phone, I was using speakers halfway across the room, so kind of sorted out this screen capture software, so we're going to give this a go. We're going to start from scratch and just go from there. This app can be used on PC, Android, and iPhone, so if I mention shortcuts, I'll try to bring them up for all three, so that way if you're using the app on a smartphone, you can use those shortcuts there as well. The aesthetic is pretty much the same. I just use a lot of the computer shortcuts because it's what I'm using right now. But as far as the gear, just got this guitar running into the Fender floor pedal and this interface. This is all I really use. It's kind of neat. I like it. Probably continue to use this for a while, and then just whatever comes with Stagelight. So we're gonna open this up and get going. So we're gonna start completely from scratch. I'm gonna start a new project. Go from there. I'll kind of show you the interface a bit before we do, but we're gonna start everything totally from scratch. So this is the landing page. This is the full application, but if you check out lessons, there's how-to lessons and then style lessons. So for style, you have anything you can really think of. I mean, they're actually pretty decent. You got like the alt rock. I really enjoy this Bengal Delta one. Dubstep one's pretty decent. All of these are available through the store. This one's kind of cool. I kind of dig this one a lot. So these are all the stylized lessons, and then if you go back, you have your how-tos, and these are very quick and also in-depth ways of just kind of learning the ropes. You know, if you've never used any DAW before, which Stagelight is a digital audio workstation software to record with, so if you've never used them, it's pretty good to go through here. I've gone through all of these. They're pretty simple. They each take about 5 minutes total to use. They're pretty useful. Some of these things I would have never really bothered using until I've looked at them. As simple as it sounds for those who actually know, you know, there's just like one-offs with the gain staging that I didn't really think of, the compression. So I would definitely check these out. So we'll go back. We'll start a new song. So by default, this is how everything's going to look when you start off, and it should be this way across the board. But again, I have a computer, so I also have a touchscreen. I can't really show you this, but if you touch the blocks down here, they'll all make noise. So you got your kick, snare, blah blah blah. The same aesthetic applies to smartphones. So you know, you press on these on either one. So probably shaking the screen a lot. Or you know, you can come up here and test out the sample. You press this arrow here. This will expand kind of an advanced console, so you can kind of see the waveform. If you're trying to change the gain, you don't want to make sure it's anything past this. You know, like this is obviously way too saturated. It'll start clipping, distorted, and all that. So you can, you know, turn it up and down, and just kind of keep an eye on this waveform. You can change the pitch if you don't really like where it's sitting. These are high and low pass filters, so if the kick is, you know, just for this example, if the kick is a bit too thuddy, on the low end, you know, just kind of oversaturated, you can cut this back a bit. If you want it to be pretty muted, you know, cut this back, and then your pan. This stretch mode is pretty useful. I keep it on. What it does is, you know, these are all being samples. They're just a cut chunk of a wave file that's, or you know, audio file that's predetermined. So let's say it's like 5 seconds. If you change the tempo of the song, generally that 5 seconds will be the same no matter what. Whereas this stretch mode will instead snap it to the tempo of the song versus the original 5 second time frame. So it makes it a bit smoother. It's really good at keeping pitch as well, which I'll probably wind up showing you later once we start working with samples. And then you can add effects as well. And I'll show you this real quick. You can use VSTs. Generally, I don't really bother with that in here, but these are all the ones that you can get for Stagelight. The ones I wind up using the most are probably the equalizer, which is now, it seems to be real-time preview, which is awesome because before there was a bit of a delay. I use the compressor a lot, and that's about it. The rest is the flavor. We might mess with stuff later on, but so this little grid icon are the settings for this sequencer here. So you can change the pattern size to 1 bar, 2 bars. This is how many bars it's going to loop on. Generally I do 8 because I like to switch things up on off measures. So I'll do 8 and nitpick them. This one are all the different kits, and these are all kits that you can get in the store. All the kits. The one I started with when the software first dropped was the Linkin Park kit. This one here. Probably use this one quite a couple times. You can press and hold on this button here. If you press and hold and then drag to the right, it'll start pre-filling, as you can see. And I think it goes down all the way to 64th notes. Yes. There's some derivative of a triplet in there, I believe, but I'm just gonna stick 4 to the floor. And you can do that on all of these. So like, I don't know, let's mess with the hat. We'll make that one the weird one. Sure. So you press play now. So yeah, you press play, obviously it'll play all the measures. Since I haven't done anything else, it's going to pre-fill what I used. But, so we'll press play, and here we can change the sound, like I was showing. So, I don't like that kick, let's just pick a random one, Future Funk. This one. I honestly kind of like this one, just for something kind of creepy. So, if we want to add it, obviously, you just hit add. And that's it. So this hi-hat's a bit obnoxious. I'm going to turn this down a bit. And you can do this with all of these. You can also, if you right-click on a sound, or I believe if you press and hold on a sound on the app, you can move it up and down, clear all the notes, so get rid of those, they're kind of obnoxious, and then just start over. Or, you know, if you press and hold and you go like 1 too far, like I did there, you just clear the note. And so, I mean, that's pretty much it for the sequencer. You got, this is the loop builder. I don't use it very much, so what I'm going to show you how to do now is just switch to the timeline. So you press this little eyeball here, show timeline. And this is how I always start, because I don't know how to do loops. What we're going to do is play with samples. I'm not really going to show how to build all the sounds. I'll show you an instrument track real quick, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to stick to the samples. So we'll add a track, do instrument track, and then these are all different ones you can get throughout the store. at least some, like half of these come with it. I can't remember which ones are additional or not, unfortunately. This one's probably my favorite, so we'll just mess around with this one. So click add if you didn't catch that. And in here, if you click this icon here and go to show parameters, these are generally locked by default unless you purchase the instrument in question. But in here you can kind of mess with everything. So the cool thing with Stagelight that I like is the fact that you can use the QWERTY keyboard that you type with to play notes. Obviously you still have the keyboard there, but your home row, so A all the way through L, those are your bass keys, and then the next row up would be like the black keys on the keyboard. So A would be the root, W would be the next black key, and then S, the next white key, and in line, so on and so forth. So they do half steps, but I'll show you the key lock in a bit because that will make things a lot simpler. But since I'm just sampling the sound that I want to play with, we'll just play with the C4. I'm doing it on my keyboard again, just so I can use my mouse, but it's just this C4 here. And let's see. Let's turn this decay all the way down, see how it sounds. I like it better there. So yeah, I mean, you can just see that you pretty much build anything you want with this. Kind of adds a bit of a grunginess to it. I kind of like that. Just kind of messing around there. Again, I'm not going to mess too much with this because this isn't the point of this tutorial. I may revisit this at a different point, but just to show you that if you unlock this feature, it's a lot more manipulative. You can literally change like every parameter of the quality of the note that you want to play, if that makes sense, and the instrument. So I don't know. Just stuff to play around with. So that's mostly it for that. Here, just like with the drum kit, are the different synths that you can use. So these again are all ones you can buy at the store. The ones labeled core are the ones that come with the program, and the instrument that we're using now is just the default. I didn't mess with anything, but these are all different ones you can purchase, mess around with. Let's do BitPad real quick. Kind of fun. So I'm not going to use either of these tracks. So before we get too far, I'll show you how to delete. I think if you press the track you want to get rid of, click this arrow here. This brings out the advanced view, kind of like in the sequencer for the drums. Here you click this gear icon. You have all these different options. For now, we're just going to delete because, like I said, I'm not going to use these. Again, if you're noticing, in most of the shortcuts that are right click for a computer and the app are going to be press and hold, or excluding this loop area, they'll be up here by this mouse icon, but we'll come back to that. Up here, if you press that arrow, it'll expand this view into a more advanced view. You have the option to freeze the tracks. I don't really mess with it. Snap the grid, tempo, whether you want to hear the metronome during recording, the loop feature, which you can turn it on and off there as well, and what I find to be super nifty is the key lock feature. So we'll come back to this once we pick our sample most likely, but I use this a lot. I'll just show you real quick. If you press on it, turn it on, pick any key you want. I play a lot in generally A sharp, and then mostly natural minor, and then just kind of click off and that'll go away. So we'll bring an instrument track back up real quick. No, just any of them. So if you might have noticed that the keys, like the half keys, the black keys, are gone now. You have your standard scale of 8 notes, and each one falls into the scale that you chose. Now, a lot of times I'll throw in dissonant notes, and as far as theory would be concerned, they would be dissonant to create a major feel on top of a minor. So with that, I'll normally leave this alone and just turn it off, so that way I get those keys back. But I turn it back on, and like I mentioned, I'm not going to use these right now, so I'm just going to delete this track. On computer, at least, you can right click and delete. I can't recall how you do this on the app other than to go to this gear icon, so I think that's a one-off just for a computer. I'm going to turn this key lock off for now because I'm not using it. So we're going to do this pretty much at random. I asked my wife to pick a couple letters, which I'll show you what I mean by that in a few seconds, and a tempo. So she picked 112, I believe. I kind of forgot. So if you didn't notice, you press this BPM 112, or it'll say 120 by default. So you can tap it, go, and you could do it that way, and then I always come in and fine tune it by pressing there and then enter. You can change the time signature, which for now we're going to leave the 4/4 until I figure out what sample we're going to use. And then you can bump it up 1 or 2, like let's say you slipped on this, you can always just come in here and fine tune it. But so we'll pick 112. You can do decimals, but I don't bother with those. It's simpler, especially if you're doing collabs, to keep them, even integers, no decimals. So again, click off. In order to import a sample, you'll have to use an audio track. So if you click this add track icon, again, audio track, and then you can press and hold on a smartphone. You right click and go to loop browser. And again, this is the full software. You're not going to get all of these loops, but this is where they would show. You have all the packs. These are all in the store. And then you can go by genre as well. This thriller one's fun. Let's see, what other ones do I use a lot? Probably the dubstep, honestly. I find it more fun to mess around with those. I use this metal one a couple times, but mostly for the bass. You can import audio file, which is what I clicked the first time, and that way you can import your own. But otherwise, the loop browser here is what we're going to mess with. So the first one she picked was T. So what do we got in T? We got Timbaland. He's got his loops in there. The Follower, Trap Zone, and Twitch Step. So I think I want to play with Trap Zone. Let's just check it out. Well, what is in here first? So here, you'll have all the names. This is the general BPM. The loops will actually auto snap to the tempo that you choose. as long as you choose it first, I believe. So we set 112. So anything we hear here is going to be 112, but this is the default BPM that the song is. This is the key. Since these are all drums, they're going to say NA. And then here you see that they're all drums, so the instrument that you want. So if I wanted to look simply for, let's say, bass, if you go up here, there's no bass in here apparently, so we're going to use a different one. But there it would show you. Let's try the follower. Yeah, okay, so if we type in bass, this will show you everything, you know, that has the word bass in it. Also, if you want to check like the key, for example, like I said, I play a lot of minor, so I would type in min, you know, for minor, and these will show all the ones in minor. You can also put a letter for the key. Those are a little difficult just because a lot of the instruments will probably share those letters. But let's say I was looking for something in the key of G, I can put in G, and then if any of, you know, just search for there. But like I said, that's a bit difficult. So, alright, so she gave me T, and then the next one she gave me was C. So these are all the different, I guess, packs within a pack if you really want to split it. But so each of these that have A generally will fit together, and then B will fit with each other, so on and so forth. Let's check out Timbaland. C. I like this big stew. So generally, you know, as we see in the beginning, I'm going to add guitar to this and probably build a song out of it. So I'm also trying to imagine what I can do guitar-wise on here that wouldn't just sound cheesy. We just heard that one. I like that one. We're probably gonna use that one. They're actually really cool. I've never listened to these well. Alright, I like this. And again, I'm just sticking to the ones that say C in the C series just because it's kind of the challenge that I have. I kind of want to see what I can build out of all of these based on what I was given. So to add it in, again, just click add. And there we go. So here's our loop, which for now we have on, because in a second we're going to start auditioning other samples to see how they sound together. So first thing I do is, again, so the mixer view here has to be unlocked as well, but if you click on it, as we build, it'll show you more and more tracks. If we do sends, it'll show you that. And again, these are in the lessons, but the key is you don't want this peaking. So the first thing I do is just press play for the loop, and then bring this down to where, like, it's right in the middle of the M here. And this is going to be my basis. Volume wise, just that way we're not going all over the place. So we got that. We're going to keep it looping. Add another track. It's going to be another audio and loop browser. Alright. So here's the mix of the samples for when you're auditioning. Since we turned our drum track down, obviously everything got super loud, so you can adjust that here. I like this a lot. Alright, we're gonna stick with this one. So again, we're just trying to make everything blend together off of that, so that way it's not peaking, and when we go to mix later, it'll be a lot easier. As much as I actually made fun of this before, I like this with what we're doing. So we're gonna add that. Alright, so you'll notice that this does not match the length of the rest of the loop. So these arrows here, you can drag them out, and that line segment in between just shows the loop itself. So how the length of the loop, and it shows that it's repeating this previous segment. So that's how you can stretch that there. I'm gonna look for one more. For the whole song, I'm not gonna play all this together, but just to build everything up together at once and then move stuff up and down later on. This one's my favorite. So quickly, out of the core package, I've done a video just based off of this reactor pack before. I love this one. This one's super awesome. If you recognize that. Obviously I can't use that though. I think I'm gonna use both of these, the synth melody and that, so we'll add that one. Briefly, I'm gonna pan these two, just because they do feed off each other. I think it would sound better if one was on one side and one was on the other. So, pan, you pick the track, obviously. Put it about halfway on both sides. So now that I have something, we're gonna turn this loop off. Let me hear that again, just to check the key. Alright. I think I'm gonna leave it the way it is. Alright, so I'm gonna zoom out vertically to shrink these down. I'm gonna add another track. These ones I'm gonna name. So for guitar, click it, gear icon, rename. I always abbreviate based on what it is. This is gonna be left rhythm for now. I don't know that I'll add a lead, but just LR for left rhythm, so I can track it later and know what I'm talking about. These go just hard left. Sometimes I pull them back a bit more, but for now we'll leave it. One more. And right rhythm, so RR, and far right. I'm gonna highlight all this, so you click and drag. On the app, if you press this arrow and do multi, you can select each one as well. It's easier to do it this way on the app. Once you have that selected, just go and click it again, select, and then we're just going to duplicate this a couple times. I'm going to do it 4 times just so I can get a loop going. I always record 1 measure out, so we're going to drag this to measure 2 just to allow for like string noise and stuff like that. And then we're going to go back up here and duplicate 3 times. So now we have 4 phrase beat. And before we get too far, bring it back home. Got the loop off. First thing we're going to want to do is save. Just give it a name. funky fresh, and then just click save. So if you press on this periodically, it will just continue to save. So now I'm going to see what I can come up with on guitar and see how it sounds. Alright, so I think I have something in mind I'm going to try. So to record, when you're doing audio, one thing you're going to want to do is one of two things. I have a preview through my earphones because I'm using my floor pedal, but let's say you're using an interface in like Amplitude or Guitar Rig or anything like that. You're going to want to click the gear icon, and generally the way I have it set up is not an option, but usually there will be an option to monitor input. This will make it so that you can hear what you're playing along with what you're playing. Again, I don't have that option because of my settings. Like I said, I have it through my headphones because of my floor pedal, so I can still hear what's going on, and you'll be able to hear what I'm doing as I'm tracking. So I have something I want to try. We're going to give it a go. Make sure this is selected so I can hear the click. And the one thing you're going to want to do, so in Stagelight you can arm the track by clicking here, and again here as well. So what this really allows you to do is to, if we only select one, like we did here, and I click a different track, it will allow me to record multiple tracks at once. If you don't do that and just leave it, whatever track you select is the track that's going to record. So this is kind of important because, and I do this a lot, sometimes I'll go and listen to something on this track and forget that I'm there and start recording, and I'm recording on the wrong track. So you want to make sure you have the right track selected before you start recording. Alright, so I like having that little break in there, so I'm going to shrink all of these by 2 measures except for the drums. I might keep that bass, I'm not sure yet. So let's preview it. And how you can do that is up in this row with the numbers, just select the measure that you want to hear. Again, I always go back a bit just so I can preview beforehand. So that's kind of how I want it. So let's turn these down a bit. Try to keep, if you're doing guitars, try to keep them the same level. As long as you're not messing with the input level, you want them very close to each other, if not identical, to give you that like wall of sound kind of thing. But you don't want the levels messed up in your ears. So let's start that over. Messed up that last chord, but I'm going to wind up cutting this anyways. So I'll explain a bit more. The reason why I do it 1 measure in front, and I'll normally record 1 measure after, so that way if, let's say you mess up, which I do a lot, It makes it easier to splice because you see all these different things. You can compare the waveforms. It makes it a lot easier to mesh the two takes together. So let's see. Now we're going to do the right side. And again, I'm just going to kind of bring these back. I didn't really mess up. If I do, I'll elaborate on what I was saying earlier. And at this point, we're just going to kind of fix the levels because I'm sure the guitars are super loud. Turn down 2 decibels. Another reason why you kind of want to preset like these volumes, like I did with the drums initially, is so that way, if it'll get a bit difficult to mix. As you can see, they're very finite, very meticulous as far as decibels and the decimal range in there. So you kind of have to be really careful with it. On the phone, it's a bit harder to do just because it's a smaller surface. Obviously, you're using your fingers. It's a bit harder to pinpoint. So when you do it this way and you turn those volumes down, you can turn these up now without having to worry about clipping or anything, just to make it easier. So if these aren't perfect, you can adjust these other ones accordingly to match them. So I'm going to kind of do it that way. So what I'm looking for audibly is with headphones, the rhythm guitars sitting on the left and right should kind of come up to like the top of your ears. Kind of fill that space there. The drums, your cymbals are going to be at the top, but your snare should be like right in the center here. Your kick will be a bit below that. Kick's difficult because of the sub-frequency, so that thud is going to be difficult to control, but you want the click of the kick, the little that part of it to be present. So I kind of bring that right below the snare so we can hear them both together, but pay attention to that sub-frequency so that way it doesn't muddy up your mix, make it super wobbly and hard to control, especially with the bass. Bass, again, keep under the snare area. Kind of, you want the thickness of it to match the thud of the kick a bit, but make room for it within the filter, which we won't touch now, but just keep it in mind that the more bass, actual bass you have, the more it will impact the thickness of the kick. So you want to be careful there. And then with leads, you kind of want them to sit with the snare in that middle zone. So when everything's all together, nothing will overpower each other. So that's ultimately what you're looking for, is a good balance. But I always kind of have like a field of vision mentally, what I'm looking for. Guitars and cymbals are always up top. Vocals will also be in this top range in the center. And then your leads are in the center here with your snare. And then your kick right below it with the bass. So I feel like I got pretty close there. We'll check it again. so these are all good. It's just a matter of these. So, again, so if you're doing like an octave run on, again, guitar is my point of reference for almost everything. Let's say you're doing an octave run that goes with the rhythm, that should also sit with the snare. If you're doing octaves, you can double them as well, but they should sit with the snare, and always pan them like halfway, as you'll see here. These aren't octave runs, these are just samples, but it's the same principle. You want it to match with the snare. Your rhythm should be the driving force, which includes your bass. So those should be relatively present but not overpowering. And then these are just for flavor, I guess. So you want them to kind of sit in the exact center, both in this field of vision, I guess, and audibly. So that's what I'm looking for here. Alright, so we got the left. And so another, I guess, tip that I stumbled across was if you're focusing too much on nitpicking settings like the volume, frequency, EQ, stuff like that, try adjusting it with your eyes closed. Just listen. Don't look at what you're doing. You know, for example, the fader here. You know, click and hold it so that way you can move it up and down without having to pay attention. But, you know, once you get going, just close your eyes and listen. And just hear where it sits. Because being musical, you're going to hear it more than see it, obviously. So if you're having issues there, that's one tip that I use a lot. It's kind of funny if someone else is looking at you. Like, my wife giggles every now and then because she watches me, and I'll have my eyes closed for like 10 minutes just messing with guitar tones. But I find it easier and less distracting if you do it that way, because then all you're focusing on is the sound. So this is the last one that we're going to worry about. Drop this down like half a decibel. Alright, so this may not be perfect. I'm not mastering by any means. But I feel like we got a decent mix out of that without nitpicking EQ or anything like that. So let's just go to the master view, or mixer console. Again, something to be unlocked in the store, but now you can see we have all these tracks here. I'm not going to mess with sends or anything. I'm not going to show you that. There are tutorials for that. They're really simple to follow. But I just don't have a need for that right now. So all I'm doing at this point is just making sure this isn't peaking. I may be adding stuff to this, so I might just bring this down so I can continue messing with these tracks and balancing everything out down the line. So pretty much the same as I did over here, where everything is loosely around the end. I'm going to bring this down to this plug icon. So it's better to keep everything low while you're mixing and recording, tracking, all that stuff, to give yourself more room to mess around with stuff. Because if you have everything maxed out, you're not really giving yourself any room. So that's something to look forward to. Again, it's in the gain staging tutorial. Or check that out along with all of the other ones. They're really helpful. But I'm just going to listen to this one more time, and that's pretty much it. I think this is where I'm going to stop on this one and just continue to build on it. Let's save one more time and then just check it out. Alright, so it's kind of cut off because I didn't account for this measure break. It's a bit sloppy, so I'm going to come back in and neaten up those guitars. But generally, this is how I start a song. If I'm just messing around, I'll import the samples like I showed. I always kind of mess with guitar, even if it's something quiet, just to see what I can come up with and just go from there. You can really just mess around with anything in here, and it's pretty simple. So Stagelight is the app is free to try and download both for PC and Android and iPhone, and then all of the other things are unlockable within the store. So you get the core package where you can really just kind of mess around, but it's a bit tied down. You won't have this mixer console. You'll only have the core samples, which I showed earlier. Like I said, it'll be a bit tied down, but it's something to play with. Everything is relatively affordable, except for like the major bundles, which can get, I think like the most expensive one's like $50. But if you stick with the core and then just buy the packs, those are like $6, $3, sometimes $1. They have tons of sales, so it's definitely affordable. You don't have to get everything. You can literally audition things. If it sounds cool to you, you download it for a couple bucks. The core software itself is $10, so within $20-$30 you could really get going and have a very dynamic range of things to play with. So if you like what you saw, if you wouldn't mind hitting like and subscribe, share it with a friend. Let me know your thoughts. If you'd like to see some other things, I can definitely give those a shot and show you how I would do them. I'm by no means a pro, but I will give anything that you would like to see a shot, and let me know what you think.